And I am now recording. Yes, so we are being recorded. And Bess, would you like to introduce us all or open up the...
My internet. Great, perfect. Excellent. Great. Right in time. I think my internet cleared up. Welcome to Collection Spotlight, everyone. I'm Bess Murphy. I'm the creative director and curator at the Co-Center for the Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this is episode or edition, I think, is it
21? Blackjack. We made blackjack.
21. It's
we
so
saved
amazing.
the best for last.
Exactly. We're so thrilled to be back with such beautiful guests today and incredible pieces to discuss. And I gave the warning to our little group here that my internet is being a little funky today. I'm going to blame it on the fact that we finally got rain in Santa Fe, so we'll take it as a blessing. But if I freeze, everyone will just continue without me. And the Co-Center is, we have a collection of global Indigenous art from historic to contemporary. It's a hands-on and immersive collection. And if you're passing through or live in Santa Fe, we really invite you to come over and spend time in the collection. It's open to any and everyone. And we're just so thrilled to be able to be here today. And America, I'll let you introduce yourself in the magazine.
Sure. And I'm also letting people in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm America Meredith from the Wichita Homelands, Norman, Oklahoma, and I do First American Art Magazine. So we try to cover North and South America. We try to have a little bit of everything. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to partner with the Co-Center for the last 2 years to create this, this discussion. And the important thing about the discussion is we have two wonderful people that are willing to share their knowledge of the pottery, artists and curators. I think everyone has their own perspective. But as the audience, you are welcome to either put questions into the chat, or at the end, we're willing to allow you to ask in person. You can turn on your mic and ask in person at the end, so you can engage directly with the speakers. But let's see. And we reached out to Colleen Lucero, who's Hopi, and she's here. She's off camera. They're together in person. She's an independent museum consultant from Hopi-Tewa, and forgive me if I butcher anything, please correct me, Arizona. She got her MFA in Museum Studies from the Institute of American Indian Arts, and she has also worked in the Hopi Cultural Preservation Office. Currently, she's managing director for the Hopi-Tewa, and forgive me if I butchered that, the Hopi-Tewa Learning Center, which is a grassroots nonprofit organization that is planning, fundraising, and will construct a tribal museum. She's from Third Mesa, so we're looking at pottery and Hopi-Tewa pottery today. So she made sure that we invited Larson, who's also known as Larson Goldtooth. He's Hopi-Tewa and also Navajo. He's a member of the Tewa Tobacco Clan and Deer Water Clan of the Navajo tribe. He resides on First Mesa that is known for the pottery, and you guys can speak a lot more. He's been making pottery for more than 28 years. His mentors include the late Mark Tabo and Diana Tabo. How do? He's shown throughout the Southwest. He's gotten a SWIA fellowship, and he helped organize the first intergenerational Hopi Pottery Festival in Polacca, Arizona. So both of them are very interested. They're invested in their own community and lifting up the future generations. So welcome, and we will pin you. So you guys can ask which pots you want to see, and then Bess will handle them, and she can move them around and show you any details. So I think you decided on the first pot, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So
And as a background, could you all explain exactly who the Hopi-Tewa are? Because that's an interesting piece of history for those who might not be familiar.
The Hopi-Tewa came to this, or the Tewas from up in the northern pueblos near Santa Clara. There's a little place there where there's now ruins. Is believed to where our ancestors came from that came here to First Mesa. So upon coming here, we were brought here, and once we settled, we started to adapt to the lifestyle here. So Hence the name Hopi-Tewa. That's how we became, known as Hopi-Tewa, but we really, our roots go back up into that region near Santa Clara. Colleen probably could explain a little more about the ruins there or that site, but that's the area that we come from, and moving forward here to now where we're at. So when we work on our pottery, because it is a combination of both Hopi and Tewa, designs with what we do in our work, then we sign it that way, just out of respect to ourselves and both our tribes. We put those signatures together, and that's how we're known here for pottery in First Mesa, as Hopi-Tewa potters. And then there's also just Hopi potters. So you just look at the signatures at the bottom, and they normally, will write that under when they sign their works.
Thank you.
So this is the pot we chose first. It looks like it's a pot from Sikyaki. So okay.
Should I? I'll pull it and I'll show it to you so you can see it. Here we go.
And of course, handling pottery is a little nerve-wracking, so this will go a little slower than we normally go because we don't want any shocking things to happen.
Right. And I think I'm actually, this one does have a stand. And so I think I'll keep it in its stand so that for that very reason. And here's what I'm going to do today. So let me know how that angle is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. What is the measurement, if I may ask?
Oh, so the dimensions we have are that it's about 10 inches in diameter. And then let me see if I can get it. Here we go. I did get it out. Sort of a stiff.
Oh, wow. Look at
Yeah,
that.
10 inches.
Diameter and then 3.5 or so inches tall.
And this is a Nampeo pot.
We have it attributed to Nampeo. Yeah.
I like the
I think we
marking.
have it verified. So
That's amazing. And it dates from 1893.
Wow. It's almost like a big, yeah, like a big, like maybe for hanging.
Yeah.
Well, you would hang it by the hooks.
I kind of thinking that because a lot, but like back then, you look at the old historic photos, like a lot of people, I guess like during that time there, I think that was in the beginning when the first white people were coming through Hopi, and I'm probably thinking around that time when she produced this pottery that it was maybe a tourist piece, just to, because back then they used to hang pottery on the wall, or either they would pop a couple holes in the center part of the pottery, and then they would use leather or some kind of string or maybe raw hard yucca, and they would hang it on their walls as a display piece to show in their house. But looking at the little thing in the back where there's a hook, you could easily tie like a string or either dismount it on a nail or screw. And back then they did a lot of that kind of stuff just to decorate their homes. But I think maybe during what year was that made? I'm sorry.
1893.
Okay, yeah. So it was probably just almost near the turn of the century where the first outside people were coming through to First Mesa, because I know like in the beginning where Roman and different people made their way through this area, and they spent a lot of time looking at and collecting the pottery as they were here in First Mesa. So, just looking at this, it's a real classical Sikyaki design, and it's really beautiful. Just the colors, looking at how she did all that, and with the two different, like the red or the yellow, we call it red, but when it starts out, it's yellow. So it's just a good combination of how she's put the design together, and it just complements the shape and the depth of the bowl. Primarily during that time, they were probably used for serving as well, just to use like to put food in, to put on the floor, or however they used to eat. Wow, that's really cool.
And a lot relating to what Larson is saying, a lot of these pieces were commissioned, saying, well, you should make us this for matches or a matchbook holder, or like
Oh my gosh.
pots, or people would suggest of what they would like to make during like the tourism boom coming through, and what would sell at, you know, the local trading post or the local trader that was coming through. So a lot of times these pieces are made for tourists rather than utilitarian uses. I think that's when we really we didn't know we were commodifying our culture, but it was kind of like people saw them in their villages, and you know, they would give money for it, and that was a new concept for us. Is like, wow, well, we could sell these to get money, because before then we would use them in monetary situations, but through trade, if we wanted to pay back for weddings, for dancing after your partner in social dances. So there was always a use for it in a monetary way. But I did notice the border on it, and that's beautiful. I think you know, that's your standard step of either clouds or water, but the border is really, it's really thick. Usually you don't see it that thick, or even that much lines around the pottery. So you can only imagine what these people are thinking when they're painting these with the colors and such. Now these days it's just so elaborate and so pristine as far as, you know, the line work people do. And I think this is a great foundational piece to look at for artists as well. So
I'm looking at the symmetry and the border design, and it's perfect. Like, you know, at that time, the thought that goes through my head was, how did she do this? Like, a lot of times back then, or even up to like the 70s, 80s, when Garnet Polacca was still alive. Garnet was my uncle's wife. So sometimes she would be making pottery, and she wouldn't even use a pencil. She would just get a yucca, and she would look at the piece, she would dot it in separate areas, and then she'd just start connecting lines. And she would just create designs on these bowls or pots. She was so good at it, like that. Like, I couldn't even do that if I tried to do it. But like, looking at that, the border, how like almost perfect it is, but then on the inside as well, just how she put it, like it's almost centered perfectly, and everything that she added to it, it all complements the whole thing, with the tadpoles signifying the water, you know, just like, and the bird tail, you know, that's a symbolization of a bird, like probably like in the sky band on top there, and then with the tadpoles inside the red there. And I'm not sure what the red could could signify, maybe water, like underneath where tadpoles swim in. But it's a really beautiful design.
Do you all use the wild spinach for the black colors, or?
Yeah, like right now is the perfect time to pick wild spinach, because it's just starting to grow. Either that, or there's just a certain weed that grows in everybody's yards here. They have these little yellow flowers on top of it. We usually pull those out all the way to the root. We yank them out, and then we snip the bottoms, and we wash. You have to pick a lot, because when you start preparing the paint, it condenses and it shrinks all the way down just into a little tiny thing of like dark molasses at the end. But you start out with a whole big pot full of greens, and you wash it, clean it all off, wash all the dirt and everything off as much as you can, and then you start boiling this. It's like almost a whole day process. You boil this plant down, and you keep going. It just keeps boiling. Once you get the juice and everything all together, you pull the plants out, strain it and everything. Then from there, you just keep a fire under it all day, and it just starts reducing itself. So at the end, you just have a little tiny bowl or container of the paint once it's cooled. So when that's done, then we lay out corn husk and we dump the paint inside of them. So that way we're able to wrap it inside of it and just tie it and keep it in a safe place till we're ready to use it. So it completely dries almost into a piece, like real hard rock candy, and you just break it off as you need it, and you put it in water on your stone, and then you just mix it with hematite rock, and that's how we get the black.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. I wish I could have brought tools and stuff. I didn't know like what the depth of the conversation would be, but I could have brought like different colors and stuff to show, because you know, just with, I have small painting stones, so I could have brought like just little examples just to show. And you know, if this happens again, I could do that and just kind of give some visuals to show like how we work on that whole process. But everything's done from the ground, just like how I get probably from that time, you know, how they learned it. And the manure, the sheep manure, came in somewhere around that time as well, because before that time they were firing with coal and lignite to produce their pieces. So a lot of the wares from Sikyaki and like Awatovi up in that area, like a lot of them use lignite, and it's pretty, there's a lot of it here at Hopi, so you'd have to actually go out and mine it if you wanted to fire with lignite, but you would have to pick a whole lot because they're just in small sheets, and it breaks really easy. So, you know, like just being a potter, you know, going through different experimental things, like with Mark, and Mark was, oh my gosh, he was such a beautiful person, but you know, just as he was always experimenting at things, he was always wanting to try different things. He was an innovative person. One time we tried to fire our pottery like how they fire up in the pueblos with the wood, and we were like looking, we went out driving, we picked a whole bunch of cow dung, and you know, we did all this stuff, and we built this fire, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we ended up just burning all our pottery. We were just totally inexperienced at what we were doing, but we burned our pottery. We even did a coal firing one time, which was pretty cool. The pots came out really nice, but the colorization that you get from manure, it wasn't on the coal-fired pottery. It was more of a lighter off-white color with just little hints of brown.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm not
strange.
sure. Yeah, I think it has to do with the temperature, because they burn at different things, but I would think that coal would burn a lot hotter, but it didn't. It just, when it changed the sound of the pot as well, it was almost like porcelain, like a real high pitch ring.
Cool.
But when you fire with manure, you get a little bit deeper tone. It's not as high, but you know, you do get that really nice ring to it. But there's a difference in using the coal versus the manure, and the temperatures as well. But with the manure, you can get it pretty hot. Like sometimes it's too hot where you can't even get near it. But with that, you're able to attain the beautiful blushes like we'll see in the vase there with the Nips pottery. But you know, I just wanted to visit this piece because at the beginning of like when they started, you know, Nampeyo was rumored to have gone to Sikyaki to charcoal these designs down on paper, where her husband was helping with the excavation there. So a lot of these designs she copied out, and you know, like took them home and incorporated her own different things and added things and took things out. So that's primarily what we do with the designs. We still use a lot of these designs today from a long time ago. We have a lot of reference material that we can fall back on as far as books and publications of different things with pottery. So, and sometimes you just, you know, you go out and hike. Like I live really close to the ruin of Sikyaki, so I'm like a mile away from there. So I go there sometimes and I'll just pick a bunch of pieces because there's just thousands and thousands of pot shirts there. And you just make little, you just put little puzzles. And Mark taught me this. You just put them all together and you take a sketch pad, because we would do that, do a lunch and just hang out up there. And we would fix all these designs, and he said, just study them, just look at them. They don't have to all fit together, but just jot them down, and then you can just kind of incorporate your own thing. And looking at, if you're stuck on the pottery and it's blank, you just look at it and you can think of these designs, and then you can just start blocking them in and just incorporating your own style and your own thing to the pot. So that was what was really cool about him, because he was like always pushing me to be innovative and be different. So when I started my career in pottery, I started with the effigies, and I'm primarily known for making standing figures. and seated figures. So that's what I primarily got my my name for in the art world for Santa Fe and stuff. I was doing a lot of that. I'm more of a effigy and, you know, doing those types of things. I really enjoy that because he was like, take it in a different direction, you know. Don't try to stay in this traditional mold where we all are. You know, the clay can do anything for you. So if you want to experience with it, you know, you can do it. So like at that time, Lonnie Vigil was getting pretty popular with his standing figures. Helen Cordero was just almost like she was still creating the seated figures at that time. So that's where he pushed me in that direction to study those and watch those people. So I did. I started watching videos and just different things. I would see them somewhere and they would be working and I would just like, you know, wow. So that's where I got my start and I started making people and I started creating that. So I started winning at Santa Fe. That's how I won the fellowship award one year. You know, I took it and his advice was really good. He was just like, you know, everybody's all into the contemporary and all this pottery, you know, you can still go back to that and make those too if you want to, but he said if you want to like kind of take it in a different direction or like make like utilitarian wear too, I like to do all those kinds of things. So he's like, just take it in a different direction and see where it goes and see what kind of audience you have with it. So that's what I did, and that's how I opened the door for myself as a native artist, you know. But now since he's passed on, it took a long time for me. He's been gone maybe almost 4 years now. And then Diana followed, or Diana went first and then he followed after Diana. So like it was a real hard blow for me to pick myself up and get moving again with it. So within the last couple of months, I like have a whole bunch of clay and I just bought some sheep manure last week. And I just told myself it's time to get to work because I'll be showing in Santa Fe at the Free Indian Market this summer. So I need to start getting to work. And I, you know, when I was telling my cousins and my mom, I kind of had a really emotional moment when I bought the sheep manure because when I was first starting out as a potter, you know, he would be firing. He was just getting into Santa Fe at that time. He was, you know, his first year, I think it was 93 or 94. And I had just moved to Hopi at that time. I was like 23, maybe almost going on 24. But I just remember those times when I would make him nervous. And one day he just like, put your hand in that bucket and get some clay and make something, you know, like, because I was just constantly just watching him. And I think it just made him nervous. But from there, you know, he just kept encouraging me to work on it. And you know, as time went on, he just said, if you really want to learn, I'm going to teach you if you want to learn it. And he said, all these things that you're going to learn, it's going to test you. It's going to really test your endurance as not only just a person, but it's going to take you through all these things. And it's not going to be easy. You know, if you want to do it, then I'm willing to take you and I'll show you. And I did. I accepted, and you know that from that point on, we formed an amazing relationship. And my cousin Diana, his sister, they were both at that same. They were really potting at that time, the early '90s to the 2000s. They were really into it, creating beautiful wares and just doing all that. So just being a part of that. And learning. And at that time, not only myself, but my cousin Dorothy Ami, she was also being mentored at that time. And, you know, we kind of would just do like sometimes have little working parties, or they would come to our houses and visit, have coffee, and we'd be working. And, you know, just for them to be there to offer like help and saying, you know, maybe if you do it this way, it'll be better, or, you know, just all that stuff. So like, and that we would talk about like the pottery, sukiyaki, all that stuff. Go on hikes and just talk about the importance of the pottery and the direction it's taking, you know, from where it's begun to like there where he left off. And then now, you know, it's a tremendous responsibility for me to try to keep going in his name, because I owe all that to him for showing me that. But you know, like now that I feel like I'm ready to start creating again. I'm excited to see what I'm going to come up with for this summer. I had a real hard time last summer. I didn't really produce as much for that show because I was just still not, emotionally ready to pick it up and start working with it, because losing him was something that really affected me. And I really, like, I went through a lot of stuff with losing him at real quick and fast. I didn't expect it to happen, and he was just gone, and like that, there was just no more. And it kind of inside my heart for a little bit, but it was still there. So I was just able to like get ready, and now I'm ready to sit down and start working on that stuff.
That's
and I
fantastic.
mentioned Mark and Diane. I just kind of want to history of where they came in and how influential their careers, with Dorothy and myself. Just before Diana passed away, then my other cousin Debbie Clashen was starting to pick up at the pottery as well. So we all come from one family, and Mark's goal, that was Mark's goal. He was like, I want to teach you guys so you'll be under, in my tree, because I'll have created my own tree to who I've taught and who I've mentored. So Diana, so we branch off of those two. So we had some really amazing teachers, and they're really missed. So with that, I just try to carry on and try to just continue with the work, because it's important. And now, not having the work get lost, and trying to find interest in other people that want to learn here at Hopi is hard, because there's really no interest right now to keep it. And that's the thing that we're worried about, is losing the art form. So how I came to this project or to this conversation was I belong to a potters group that we formed in First Mesa, and it's called the actually I forgot the name of the group. It's an intergenerational pottery group, and we're trying to form it into a nonprofit, but we need a lot of help. We're just starting from the ground. But the potters at First Mesa, there's probably maybe about 10, 12 of us that put this group together through the direction of Karen Kehi, and what was the lady's name? Shoot, she wrote the book for the Peabody Museum with the image on the digital works. McChesney, Leah. So they put this group together along with this other lady through the Smithsonian, but we started forming this group. So we do a pottery show every year, once a year, for the community, because we want to continue the pottery. We don't want it to get lost. So we do a weekend of firing pottery, doing little demonstrations and talking about the art and the pottery, and just hoping that we will keep the pottery alive here at Hopi. We don't want it to die away. So we have a small group of potters that are committed to this organization that we formed. And out of this group so far, we've done, I think, 2 Hopi or little pottery shows for our community, where we invite the outside to come in and we do all this stuff for one day. And then we were also fortunate enough through a grant to go to the Smithsonian about 4 years ago now. And we did a whole learning section there with the pottery in their collection. So that was just an amazing experience. So that, now that we're back here at Hopi, we want to keep this organization going. So that's how I came here to be part of this conversation, because I'm speaking on behalf of our group as well, not only for myself, but we want to keep the pottery alive, and we want to keep it going in our village, so that way it's not lost. So we're hoping to inspire younger people or other people here at Hopi and Polacca that want to learn.
That's fantastic. That's really amazing. I like that you have an S for Sityaki.
I'm trying to be Superman. No, I'm just kidding.
So we can move on to the next pottery. I don't know if you want to take questions at the end or as we go along, but
people can type them in during the chat, but yeah, at the end, people can ask verbally. But anytime you want to ask any questions on the chat. But yeah, what's the second pot you would like to look at?
We want to look at the 1543 by Nakwawi. I kind of wanted to put that out there in case people listening knew who that was, or if Larson knew who that is. But I also wanted to talk about, just as Larson was talking, we have our own interpretations on how we talk about the pottery, compared to the institution that it's housed at. And so a lot of times that's not really put in the forefront. So it's really awesome to have Larson here to talk about that and kind of give his perspective on that, and add to whatever the metadata is on our perspective, rather than what most collectors find in books or our resources not from the Hopi-Tewa communities. So Larson picked this piece, which is beautiful, but we kind
Let's look closer.
I wanted to see, so when he showed me the numbers, I was like, that's the piece that I wanted to look at also.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, you fade out a little bit when you move away, but
Oh, okay. Are we okay now?
you're okay, yes.
Okay. Wow, this is a really beautiful pot. What's the height of it?
It's
It
9
is about
5 inches.
9.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty. Oh, that's really pretty. That's what we call the traditional Thunderbird design. Supposedly it's like the, I don't know, my Mark used to talk about it like this. It's the man and the woman, and there's the flower there in the middle, and like with the sky band and the bird designs in the middle underneath the sunflower, but it's like them coming together, like how they talk about the germination of the flowers and all that. Like he used to explain the design like that. And I remember him doing this design a couple of times, and most recently, maybe within the last 5 years, I tried it on a cylinder as well. But he tried to push me in cylinders too, but I can't do cylinders. My hands are too big, and I can't get them to stay in one uniform shape. So they're really difficult to build because it's done on the tabletop. So you just go coil by coil and just go up and start shaping. But like that, you see the change from the design from the Sikaki pottery, the first one with Nampeo. But you can still see the color incorporation that they still use. And I'm guessing this is probably what, 1970s?
Oh no, 1910.
we have this freaking 1910. Yeah.
1910?
They have a
Wow.
great collection. You need to visit it.
Yeah.
Wow, that looks, I was almost guessing a 1970s, because wow, that is really beautiful for 1910. Wow, she did a lot of nice work on it. Wow, Navakwavi. I don't know what that means. I need to find out what that means. Navakwavi is the name of the artist. Yeah, maybe from Walpi or Sichomobi at First Mesa. I'm thinking Navakwavi. But you can already see that, like, in the design too, like, because now that's what we're still doing. It right there in the middle where you put it to the front is the stipulation that we use and inside the sunflower, the stipples that they make at that time. I probably think they were using yucca just at the end of the brush and stipulating it inside. But now, like today, we still do that. We still use that in our designs, but we use matchsticks. And we
cool, clever.
do the end of a matchstick because it fans out a little bit more. And then you just dip it real quick into the paint, and then you get the same effect. But that's really cool because she was already doing that in 1910. The design's really clean, and the yellow that she used, is the yellow polished in there? Or the red? Is the red on the face polished in
Sorry,
there?
my internet is cutting out. So
Oh no.
yes,
Okay.
it is
Looks like it
polished.
is.
It's polished. Okay. Wow. And see, that's the thing too with potters now here at First Mesa. A lot of them still do use that technique to do the polishing with the red. Because when we apply it to the pottery, it starts out yellow, like a mustard color yellow. And then from there, you apply so many coats of it and let it dry. And then you use clean water to polish that that yellow clay in and with a rock. So once it fires, because of the oxidation in the heat thing, when it reduces down, it changes the color from yellow to red. So in all the pottery that you see from Hopi with the red or the maroonish color, that started out as a yellow.
That's wild.
Yeah, and then the black stays black. And then we also have like another color. It's a mauve color, and then there's like a turquoise or a bluish color. But I haven't really done those. I'm kind of just stuck on the traditional red and black. But now I'm trying to teach myself how to polish the yellow because I've never done that as a potter. So I have a piece I'm working on right now that I'm going to experiment polishing the yellow to see if I still have the technique with working with slips, because working with slips is a whole different thing too. And that's pretty cool. But with that, the vase is just the classic on the vase design, and it really, the design, everything, how it just complements the whole piece, and it's really beautiful.
Is there a third? Did you all decide on a third piece that you want to see?
Oh yeah, there's one right here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to pick this piece because, you know, a lot of times back then, I think of like what their version of abstract was, or maybe just a feeling of what they felt, you know, they were putting it into the pottery. And I just wanted to show a little bit of contrast of what is very simple, but yet elegant, to something a little bit more busy, I guess you could say, with a lot more designs and line work in it. But I just, I guess we could all, you know, say what it means to ourselves, and maybe that's what this piece was for. But I just really like the simplicity of it and the feeling of it, as far as, you know, what they were trying to put into it. It's not identical so much, but, you know, they, you know, a lot of times now art is real, in our language, we say cuivi, like really picky. You know, this is really specific, that has to be done. But like when you look at these earlier pieces, you know, some of it is uneven and some of it, you know, isn't symmetrical, I guess, in a sense. But, you know, it's beautiful. And I just like to bring light to those pieces. And a lot of times too, each artist has to start from somewhere. So sometimes, you know, when a potter looks at a piece, they're like, oh, this person was barely starting, or oh, maybe this was a little kid that made it, or just something. And there could be a lot of different stories to it. But I just wanted to attribute the simpler pieces and how oftentimes we overlook them just for the more pristine design work, I guess you could say. So oh, and see, look at that.
Oh, wow.
It's because I don't think you saw images of this.
I haven't seen the side images.
That's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And you can see that, like a lot of pots like that, like at the Smithsonian, we saw a lot of pots with that kind of design on there. Like they were more modern or like more contemporary. And we were kind of thrown off by that. We were just like, what were these people thinking? You know, what made them put these in there? But these might be interpreted as feathers. I'm not sure. What do you think? I'm thinking feathers. Or like in the spotlight.
Well, I'm thinking that could relate to a lot of the Spanish pottery that was brought into like Oaovi. And I know that sometimes we incorporated those flower designs, or, you know, these leaf designs in different potteries we see around that time period. So I think, and also maybe from neighboring tribes, such as like the Acoma or the Zia people, who do a lot of those flower designs in their pottery. So I think a lot of times, you know, we're still experimenting with design work and evolving. And I think that's what's so great about pottery. I'm from Third Mesa, and so we specialize more in basketry. And so when I was asked with this request through the Cultural Preservation Office, when I worked there, I had talked to Mr. Koyayamtiwa, who is the director of the Cultural Preservation Office, and said, I would feel more comfortable if we brought in actual artists that do this type of artwork and have them talk about it rather than just a general Hopi person. But it's not to say that each village doesn't do their own version of pottery. When I was little, I was exposed to pottery through my god sister, Laura Cooker Chapella. She used to babysit me, and she used to let me make my own little pots for, the offering bowl. And so, you learn, even though each village specializes in a different craft, we're all exposed to it in different parts of our lives through different types of uses. From there, it went to learning about how piki is made in pottery. They mix it in pottery, or how when people go give blessings, they keep their cornmeal in the pottery, or how we use them in basket dance. And I just feel so bad sometimes for potteries that are like in institutions and collections, because that interaction isn't there anymore. And that was its main use. I always feel bad for people who have to wear gloves. And I'm like, you poor things, you don't even know what it's like to catch a pottery or to throw one, or, the joys that it could bring you. And a lot of times we forget that. And I just feel bad for potteries that are, behind the glass and don't want to be touched. And I'm just like, that's part of its care, is to be able to touch it and to be able to care for it and appreciate it. And not only that, the senses around it, the smell of the clay, what Larson said earlier about the sound of the clay, or even when you break it, how it sounds, when I was at I said, we should make a bunch of potteries and just, crush them on after midterms are over, I was like, you guys don't even, they teach us one thing in school, but, the learning experience throughout your whole lifetime really plays a key role in how you want to share these items with outside people. And I think that's a gift for the Hopi people, is how they want to share this with people. And I think sometimes that's it can be a good thing or a bad thing for us, for the demand of it, and kind of overlooking those little qualities that are that do happen with commodification. And so that's kind of where my expertise fall in just telling these stories and curating these items. And not only that, like making sure that our community has a voice in curating how they would like people to learn about this. And not only that, how are we explaining that to our children? As Larson mentioned earlier about the art form dying, and Karen was talking to us, Charlie, what's her other last name? Karen Cahey, she's a renowned artist. Her main reason she explained to me of putting together the first Mesa intergenerational pottery group was that she's not so much worried about the art form of it, but more the technical part of teaching kids what different tools mean in Hopi, or the different seasons where you go collect, or those little tidbits that are involved in learning pottery that are not being passed down. The knowledge of it is something that this group is concerned with, and that kind of relates to the bigger picture of having an actual learning center and a museum for the Hopi people that I'm trying to help with here with the Hopi-Tewa Learning Center. And so I think it's really important that it's good to look at a book of, collectors and the catalogs and such, but it just goes over a lot of the community curation part of how we feel about it, or, you know, just those funny stories around different pieces that make it come to life. And so I just kind of wanted to, you know, elaborate on that and how it feels to us around pottery. It's not something that we say, oh, here, don't break it, or, you know, be careful with it. You know, it's kind of like, if we don't touch it, if we don't, you know, smell it and or anything, we will never really know the true meaning of pottery for us. And that's kind of what we want to share with others as well. So I can just leave it at that. And I know, I'm sorry to disappoint everybody with like the terminology. We don't, you know, really use all of that when we're talking about pottery, because those are something more that institutions use when teaching at a different type of level. But we have our own level of teaching too here that is really general and open, and we kind of do it that way to recruit the younger people, to welcome them in and say, you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You know, you'll find your way. And so I think that's like how it is with all kinds of crafts. But yeah, that's kind of my role in this whole in the whole pottery realm. I come across a lot of different questions and inquiries about, you know, what should we do with this newer collection, or how is this appropriate or not? And those are really good questions that people are asking, and it wasn't always that way a few years ago. You know, the anthropologists were the experts, you know, the go-to people. And we want to remind everybody those types of, you know, scholarly research are by non-natives, and they overlook a lot of those different qualities. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing. We maybe have a time for one more pot if you guys had one selected.
Those were the ones that we were, yeah.
Okay, you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were like, man, we're gonna have so much to talk about. We can't go through all of these pottery. And another thing that Karen said is that, you know, these artists are still alive, and it's kind of bad manners to talk about their artwork when they're still living, and because they have their own interpretation. So we would like to be safe and just, you know, talk about the ones that are on that don't have an artist, or maybe they've already moved on, just to give that artist respect, because each artist has their own way of talking about their artwork, and they should be given that. So we wanted to be respectful, and that was our approach selecting the piece.
Yes. So yeah, in the time we have left, if anyone from the audience would care to unmute yourself, I believe you all can unmute yourself, and you're welcome to ask questions directly. Let's see, you can unmute yourself, yes. And I appreciate the fact that you brought up the language, because I know with tribal funding, often it's like art or language. And it's like, no, it's not one or the other. They go hand in hand, because there's words that are really specific to processes and materials that are in the art making. So, you know, they both feed each other. We have a shy audience today. The rain's put everyone into nap time.
I just want to say how much it means to us at the Co to hear you, Colleen and Larson, but especially what you were talking about, Colleen, about how important it is to handle the pieces and give them love that way and care for them that way, and that is part of the caring process. And it's so lovely to hear, and we support you on that, absolutely.
Yeah, in my experience with at the Smithsonian, it was really, really powerful. And I think all of us experienced it when we were walking down the long corridor to go to where the Hopi collection was. And when we rounded the corner there, they had all the cabinets were all open in like 2 or 3 sections. And when we walked around the corner, we just kind of all stopped and we were just staring, and you honestly, the energy from that pottery was so strong.
Mhm.
And working with them, going in and out of different collectibles to just handle them without gloves and study them. And we opened up dialogue piece that we were pulling off the shelf that's pick something, and we will just go through each one for a whole week. And it was just a really amazing experience. And like Colleen explained at the end when we were leaving, it was really emotional, because we felt that, like, you guys belong at home with us, where we can take care of you, but we don't have any kind of space like that to do that. So when we were leaving, we left food offerings and kind of just said our own prayers as we were walking away from those pottery. But the true thing about that was just the energy that each one of those pieces, the person that creates them, Mark always told me that, whatever you're doing in any stage of this pottery, it's all who you are as a person. You're putting all yourself into this from the very first time you start putting it together, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your music you're listening to, you tell your secrets to the pottery. So like everything that you put into it, and when you get to the end where it's all done and the creation's finished and it's going out for marketing, you're actually really sending a piece of you with that person, and they're buying or they're purchasing like everything that is you, and you're sending that. You say a little prayer for it, and just to take care of their people in their homes, and just help them to enjoy you, just wish them well and send them on their journey. So like that, we have stuff all over the place. And I always think of that, I think about that and just the connection that we have here, and how strong it is that we do treat our pottery like our own, like our children. And we go through, sometimes they don't make it, they break or they burn, or but we still take really good care of them. And there's certain ways that we're taught to put them away, or recycle them, or whatever we can do with them once they're at that point where we can't sell them, or sometimes we just give them away as gifts to people, for different things. So it's just really amazing, and I'm really happy to be a potter, because I learned so much, not only about myself, but just the art, and just reading and researching. I like doing that, and I like going around talking, and just so people understand, as an artist, we come from this whole different space and this whole different environment where we're at, and compared to the outside world, but we're still together as one, and we try to just keep pushing every day. And with our creations and stuff, we're still pushing forward, and we're still wanting to experience things as artists as well.
Yeah, Helly Walks, Janine Skinnendor, so I'm guessing Oneida Nation. She did have a question for you. She said, when you talk about the polishing of the yellow slip in the pot, are you talking about burnishing? And could you talk a little bit about that process? Do you use like rounded stone or a gourd?
Yeah, so what we use is we use riverbed rock. So
Okay.
like sometimes when we're hiking, we go like run across water where there's rocks there. So being a potter is really awesome, because you spend a lot of time outdoors, and you get to hike, and you get to experiment. You take rocks and you grind stones, wet them, with water, just to make sure they're like clay pigments and everything. They're just out there. So we have to go out and look for all these things. But in reference to the polishing, yeah, it's the clay. So what happens with that is we grind it down really fine, and then we make a real thick clay slip, and then we strain it to catch all the impurities. So what's left at the bottom is just the real pure clay. So we add a little more water to that. We use that as a slip to put inside or on the outside of a pot if we want to slip. And we usually apply like maybe 2 to 3 coats, sometimes 4, depending on the thinness of the pottery, because you don't want to put too much water on it. In the event, it might crack from just being too wet. So but each stage you have to let it dry, once you put on the slip, then you let it dry again. And then like by the 4th or 5th time it's ready, and we dump out the dirty water and then get clean water, and we get the riverbed rocks and just wet the whole pot entirely. And then you just start working with it. And there's a technique in itself with that and how you work the clay, you know, because you don't want it to lift off and peel. Otherwise you'll have the gray color underneath, and when you fire it, that shows up. So you don't want any of the underneath to come up to the top. So you try to keep that slip down the whole time. So it's a really tedious process, but it's fun. It tests your patience a lot too. And I have my own favorite polishing stones. I have different sizes, some that were handed down through different people, so you know, as gifts and stuff. So you know, just to have them from other potters, you know, just they pass you things sometimes and you take them and use them for your work. So you know, like that, we keep kind of an open channel with different people and just kind of communicate and stuff for potteries. If we're having problems or whatever, we try to connect with one another and talk about it.
Thank you. And are there any other questions that people have? Well, we're almost at the hour. So you said that you're going to be, Larson, you will be at the free market.
Yes.
That'll be okay. Do you know if that'll be indoor or outdoor?
I believe it's outdoor. It's at the Scottish
Okay.
Rite Temple, just north of the
Yeah.
plaza there. It's turned into a really big show. I was looking at the artist list, so I'm pretty excited to go this year. There's a lot of the really well-known artists that are going to be in that market this year. So it looks like it's going to be a really good fun. I'm so glad that Greg was able to start that, because trying to get into Santa Fe now, into Swaya, is really difficult, and it's really expensive. So you know, like that, as Native artists, we don't really have a lot of money all the time, and you know, we just try to do with what we have. So like having a show like this for us is something that's really beneficial, and something that we'll be able to, you know, make a living off of and survive on for a little while. But we'll be there, or I'll be there on that weekend. So, you know, come by and say hi. I'm not sure of the booth number that I have.
I don't even know if they have numbers. You just
they
find
have,
people.
yeah, they have numbers. They have numbers.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, it's 200 and something, but I don't know the number, but I'll be there.
Right on. And then, yeah, someone's complimenting your shirt. And then Colleen, you said that you'll be at the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums conference. So that's October 25th and 20 through 27th in Temecula, California,
Yeah.
Pachinga.
Yeah.
So people that are curious can visit with you.
Yeah, we're part of the ATOM's Community Builds Culture cohort with
Cool.
9 other tribes trying to build a cultural center, learning center, and our museum. Just a quick background about why we chose to use the word learning center rather than museum is that our people, a lot of them commented and said, well, why do we want to be a museum? You know, it's not in our culture. We've never really collected dead things and, you know, kept them. And why do we want to be like them? And we've had a lot of run-ins with museums and past traumas about how they exploited our culture without our permission, and with a lot of funerary objects and human remains. And so there's been a lot of trauma, and that's kind of why we said, well, you know, we're creating something of our own for us, and we don't have to call it a museum. You know, that's why we geared calling it the Hopi-Tewa Learning Center. And what Hopi-Tewa means is like all the culture, everything in unison of being Hopi. It's Hopi-Tewa, doing it the Hopi way. And so that's kind of how we chose our name for our project. And the Hopi tribe has been trying to build a cultural education center for the past 40 years. And so our group, known as the task team members, we, you know, did the research. We learned about why it didn't come to fruition at all of these different stages. So it is a historical project and not something that we just thought about yesterday. It's been in the works for our tribe for a long time. And everywhere I go, people comment and say, why not now? You know, the Hopis really need a space like of this magnitude, you know, because we have a lot of collections items that are wanting to come home. I know a lot of the work that has been done at the Hopi Cultural Preservation Office has been through agreements and understandings that, you know, it does belong to the Hopi tribe, but because we don't have the space, we will, you know, steward the items there until you can bring these items home. And so we have, once we get a space, I know it'll be filled up just as fast as we're hoping to build it. So that's kind of what our endeavor here is at Hopi is, you know, really creating a space for the people and an area for the people first, and not for so much for tourism and all of that. You know, there has to be a component in there though also to teach visitors on how we would like for them to respect our culture, where to go, just those important pieces that visitors will need to know when they come visit Hopi. But ultimately our goal is to, you know, create this learning center for the people. So that's kind of where we're trying to build and develop these concepts with our people first, and then build the space. So
That sounds fantastic.
yeah, and I'm excited too. We're starting, we got a few grants, and we're gonna start some programming this summer. We're gonna go out and hire some artisans to do some community curation about some collections items that belong to the Hopi tribe, but are currently housed at the Museum of Northern Arizona. And then we also want to go out and get testimonies and interview people on how COVID has really impacted our culture, just because we were unable to do a lot of our traditional ceremonies during the times it happened, and just kind of document that for the future generations to be able to look back at in this time. And so that way when we go through this, as you know, our ancestors did in different historical times of sickness and how they dealt with that. And so me and Larson have a lot of work with our own communities, and it's on that level. You know, we want to start there and then share it with others. And I really enjoy the festival that they have there at First Mesa. I got to go there last year, and it was just an awesome event. And so, you know, hoping these different events echo through other communities as well, and institutions, on how important culture is, and maintaining those traditions through the different lenses and that we're evolving through. We always try to balance that with culture and modern times for our children. So, and I appreciate you reaching out to us, and I'm always encouraging other people to do so in that manner, rather than just looking on YouTube or Wikipedia or something like that. And I'm always telling people that the most traditional people with this knowledge, they're not on YouTube, they're not on Facebook. Some of them don't even have a phone, and there's a certain etiquette to follow. You know, we don't have like dial an elder. You know, some people call them like, I want to talk to an elder, and we're like, well, geez, you know. So that's not how our tribe works. You know, we don't provide those services just from a phone call or such. So I appreciate you working with us to getting this show going in this manner. And I really wanted to have an actual potter here to talk about that, because I'll admit firsthand, I'm not an expert with pottery, because you know that we're all different in different villages. So I'll pass it on to Larson.
I just want to say thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time that I spent with you all today, and just discussing the pottery and just its meaning, and just where I've come from in my learning and stuff. But being a native artist or being a potter. Oh, you have a pretty dog. I love your dog.
Yeah, very important.
Oh, and then the other thing too is maybe like at some point our group could probably reach out when our show is ready to happen again. And then you could probably just put a nice note out for us to let people know what's happening so we can get a little bit broader audience, because
Oh,
like I
yes.
said, we're just starting from looking for to become a nonprofit, so that way we can raise money and travel and do all these cool things like that, like visiting museums and collections and stuff. So you know, that was really something for us to do, to leave here from Hopi and take about 13 potters to go visit the Smithsonian collection. It took a lot of work among a lot of people, but you know, it was really an experience for us to go and see and experience and just feel, you know, and coming back with that appreciation and having those old designs to use for reference, because it's not out in mainstream society floating around, you know, they're just in little binders and stuff. So it's really important to just preserve that and hold on to that, you know, as a native artist, and just trying to keep the pottery going and moving forward. So I thank you for your time and just wish all of you good blessings, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you both, and thank you, Bess. And everyone knows when you go to Santa Fe, do get a hold of, call them in advance, but do get a hold of the Ralph T. Coe Center for Arts, and they will let you see the artwork.
Oh,
And
yes,
handle it.
definitely. Maybe I'll take an extra day off prior to Santa Fe, maybe like a Thursday, and I can try to come up if I'm done early. I would like to come see the collection.
And we'll be around all Indian Market Week. So here and over the weekend. So you're around. Just come by. Probably good to call us, but come by.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful week. Cheers.
Bye.